Spoiler Alert Podcast.
Start to this video didn't play my introduction video, whatever. I'm so sick of this streaming software. It's garbage. I don't know why I paid for it. Anyway, this is part 2, Amber Alert Podcast. What is this? Episode 105. So we left off in part 1. I was saying how we're getting into a disappearance that happened. I want to say this was in like 1979. And it was in Australia. It was a young pilot. When I say pilot, he wasn't a pilot. He was not a commercial pilot, not a private, or he may have had a private pilot's license or something like that. So he had airtime. He obviously was capable of flying an aircraft by himself and was allowed to do it. So I'm not saying that he wasn't a pilot in the sense that he couldn't like legally fly an aircraft. He could. So he wasn't inexperienced. He had failed, like, I think some exams when it comes to navigation or something like that. So he did not have a commercial license as far as I understand. He was like 20 years old. Anyway, I'll just read the story to you because I find it interesting, especially in light of all of the UFO talk that has been going on. This whole subject has become mainstream. You know, for the longest time it was, oh, if you think UFOs are real, you're a psycho, you're a lunatic, you are, you know, what do you hear, voices in your head? You know what I mean? Like that type of person. And it was easily dismissed. When I say easily dismissed, I mean normal people like dismissed it, that those people are nuts. However, everyone who's been talking about this subject, all the researchers, all the authors, they're now being vindicated. If they weren't before, they at least are now, because you've got the president talking about it. You've got people like Marco Rubio, who is like a serious person. You have, it's gone mainstream, right? And I think we are on the cusp of some disclosure. Now, will it be true? I doubt it. I would just about bet my life you're not actually going to get the truth on the matter. You may get facts. You may get things that have actually happened. They may produce even a body that'll look like an alien. They're going to come with stuff that's believable. However, you're not going to get the truth of the source or the origin. If anything, you'll be fed some type of garbage about how these are, you know, friendly aliens from another planet or from outer space. They were here, which is why you see evidence of them having been here with whether it's just going to be crop circles with the pyramids or whatever, the Roswell, you know, the UFOs that flew over the White House, whenever that was. Gosh, when was that? Let me see if I can find. I want to say it was in the 40s, but I could be wrong. It may have been during Eisenhower. Okay. Oh, it was 1952. A series from July 12th to 29, 1952, a series of unidentified flying objects sightings were reported in Washington, D.C., later became known as the Washington Flap or some other things, consecutive weekends. Okay. Okay, so it was 1952. Who was the president in 1952? I should know, but I don't. I couldn't name half of the U.S. presidents. I don't remember. Oh, okay, it was Truman. Anyway, so that happened. So anyway, I think we're gonna get disclosure sometime soon. Could be this month, could be next month, could be July. It could be not until 2027. I don't know, but I think something's coming. Some type of announcement, some type of show and tell. Hey, look what we actually have. And it'll probably make people think, see, we're telling you the truth, because we're it's almost, here's the thing. Let me just say this. Conspiracy theories more often than not, they are true, many of them, but there's like I think Satan is using actually the distrust that almost everybody now has in the government, and in the establishment, in education and everything. He's going to use that distrust to deceive people, because it's like, if you don't believe anything the government says, which I mean, I don't really, but like, if you don't believe anything the government says, and you don't believe anything a history book tells you, and you think you've been lied to about everything, you don't have any foundation on anything. So you're going to be easily convinced of something that comes against the narrative, right? Oh, we're going to give you UFO disclosure because the government has covered this up. The government has made sure that you weren't told about this, and so we're going to let the secrets out because we're on your side, that type of thing. So it's like they're going to use that doubt and distrust in the government to then feed you something that's also a lie. But they were able to make this happen because using the distrust you already had. So it's kind of like, it's like that. I think it's like a country song. If you have to stand for something, or you'll fall for anything. So it's almost like, if you don't have anything that keeps you grounded, then you will be easily deceived, because the first thing that comes along that can check boxes and that looks convincing and seemingly goes against this whole massive system that has lied to you and poisoned you and done all these things to not just the American people, but across the world, these global elites and stuff. If it seems to, we're sharing their secrets now, their secrets are getting out, then you'll tend to accept that as the truth. Yeah, I knew they were keeping secrets, so now that they're coming out, it's got to be true, right? Because it goes against what they wanted us to know. But the problem with that is, it's like exactly what like Pfizer does, or half of these, big pharma. They create a problem and then sell you the cure or the treatment for it. So it's like that. Let's create enough distrust in the system, and then we'll look like we're outing them. We're outing their secrets, but really the disclosure is coming from the same system that covered it up in the first place. So that's deception to its top tier, like at the highest level. And if you're not grounded in scripture, you can be deceived. In fact, you will be, because it's going to come from all sides. Deception's coming from all sources in these last days, on every subject, coming from everywhere. You have to stay rooted in the word of God. It's the only thing that is true, and always has been, and always will be. It's the only shot you've got. So, why did I go down that whole thing? I forget what I was leading it up to. I don't know, just disclosure. So I think it's coming. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into what happened to Frederick. Frederick, what's his face? Valent. I don't know. I forgot already. Let's just read it. So, Frederick Valentich, or Tick. I don't know. Okay. Don't know how to say it. Anyway, he disappeared. So the basic facts of this case, it happened on October 21st of 1978. The pilot was Frederick Valentich, 20 years old, aircraft, a Cessna 182, whatever those other letters mean. His route was Mooraboon Airport to King Island, Australia. All right. And the flight time planned was only 45 minutes. So that's a pretty short flight. Wasn't really planning to be up there very long. The weather was clear, there was good visibility, and there was light wind. So the timeline, which is based on official radio transcripts. So this is not a conspiracy theory. This actually happened. At 6:19 p.m., he was cruising over the Bass Strait. Valentich contacts Melbourne Air Traffic Control, and he asks, is there any known traffic below 5,000 feet? ATC responds, and they said no known traffic. So obviously he's asking the question because he sees something. He's like, anyone supposed to be up here? Moments later, the first report, Valentich says, I am being accompanied by an aircraft. He describes a large object flying above him and moving fast. So first he's like asking, is there supposed to be anything around me? And then he's like, listen, there's something here. Okay. And he's talking to the tower. We'll play the video in a little bit where we can hear it. It had to be reproduced because, again, it's from 1978. So it's kind of a reproduction of it, but we'll be able to hear it. But I'll tell you what was said first. So, behavior of the object. He reports it passes over him, it circles him, and it has 4 bright lights. Then he says, it's not an aircraft, which that is strange behavior. Not that they can't do all kinds of crazy things in like whatever the Top Gun jets are, they can maneuver like crazy, but he's like, this is not an aircraft. Okay. Like, I'm not dumb. I'm in the air flying a plane. Like, I sort of know what they look like. Okay. Engine trouble begins. Valentich reports, my engine is rough. It's idling roughly. This is critical. Something or something perceived coincides with engine issues. So he's, reporting, I'm seeing something. And then right after something is messing with him, then his engine starts being weird. Final moments, he says it's hovering and it's not an aircraft. Then a metallic scraping sound is heard over the radio. The last transmission cuts out, and that time was 6:53 p.m. So where was it started at 6:19, and then by 6:53, where did it go? Right here. His transmission cut out. So not a terribly long period of time from the time he reports something's up, and then they hear a sound, and suddenly the man is gone. All right. So what else? Immediate response. Air and sea search launched, covered large area of the Bass Strait. The results, there was no wreckage, no oil slick, no debris, and no body. Nothing was ever recovered. Okay. People in airplanes don't disappear into thin air, especially when they immediately launch a search. All right. Like, usually if he crashed or something else hit him, which might, there's the metallic sound that came over the radio, you'd think there'd be something, a trace of something, and yet nothing. All right. The official investigation, it was conducted by Australian authorities. The final conclusion is causes unknown. So that they literally were like, we don't know. They did not confirm mechanical failure, pilot error, or external interference. Yeah, you can't really confirm anything when there's nothing to find. You got to go based off of what you heard over the radio, and that's it. You can't investigate when there's literally no debris, no body, no nothing. Key facts about Valentich. These matter for interpretation. He had 150 hours of flight experience, which is relatively low. Remember, he was 20 years old. He was he failed commercial pilot exams multiple times, and he was known to be interested in UFOs. This is documented, not speculation. So because he was interested in them and knew a thing or two about, whatever you could have known back in 1978. I don't know what could have been known back then. Obviously, that was years after Roswell, after all, it would have been you would have probably been considered a lunatic back then if you thought they were real, because up until very recently, you still were considered one. Now it's mainstream, but it's like back then you probably were kind of ridiculed for it. I even used to think that. I used to make fun of people. I was like, bro, whatever. But if you look, the stuff is there. It's just up to your interpretation. What is this that we're looking at? Some people, I do think a lot of them that we see, that people take pictures of in videos, probably a lot of them are what our own military has, and it's just not public knowledge. But they're probably back engineered from something we received from somewhere else. Oh, this thing crashed, which I don't think the crashes are even accidental most of the time, probably intentional. And then we take in the debris, we back engineer it. And now our military has things that look like UFOs that people are like, that's not a plane. It's not a kite. It's not a shooting star. What is that? Much of it probably is from our own military, just not 100% of the time. All right, next. So the main explanations, fact-based, disorientation plus crash. So the theory is that Valentich became disoriented. He possibly inverted or lost horizon reference, crashed into the ocean. Supporting facts, night flight over the water equals very easy to lose orientation, inexperienced pilot, engine issue could be misinterpretation. I don't know if it's it's fair to say he was inexperienced. He didn't have a ton of experience, but he did have experience, you know. Mechanical failure theory, engine trouble, forced descent, and then crash problem doesn't explain detailed object description and circling behavior. Also, is interesting that there was no shred of, no debris, no nothing left behind. Third theory, unknown aerial object. What's factual? Valentich did report a structured object, movement patterns, and lights. Several witnesses on the ground reported unusual lights in the sky that night, but no physical evidence was ever found, and there usually isn't any. Usually there's not. You can get a blurry picture or a blurry video, but there's not usually hard evidence for things like that. You just are basically going off of eyewitness testimony and then whatever they are able to produce as far as pictures go, which there are some. Fourth theory, hoax or staged disappearance. The theory is that Valentich staged his own disappearance. The problems: no evidence he survived, no financial resources trail, no confirmed sightings afterward, generally considered unlikely. I don't, the kid was 20 years old. I think that theory is dumb, but I didn't know him. Next, what makes this case stand out? Even with grounded explanations, detailed, calm reporting up until the end, so he didn't sound disoriented or out of his mind. Description of controlled moving object, metallic sound before disappearance, zero trace recovered. So based off of what his communication with the tower, some of those theories kind of fall apart, where it's like he certainly didn't sound like out of his mind or anything, right? So these are the reported sightings from that same night. It was October 21st, 1978. Location, area, the Bass Strait between mainland Australia and Tasmania. Time window, roughly 6:30 to 7, around the time Frederick Valentich disappearance occurred. So here's the thing. We don't know for sure that what other people reported seeing in the sky has anything to do with what he said was messing with him that was around his plane. We can't say that for sure. I find that to be a little bit of a strange coincidence. Just so happens other people are like, hey, there's something in the sky that doesn't look right. At the same time, you have someone flying saying, hey, there's something circling my plane and it's not a craft in the same area at the same time. To me, I would kind of connect those dots and say might be the same thing. We, again, can't say it for sure, but in my head, that would make sense. So what witnesses actually reported? Multiple people reported unusual lights in the sky. These came from people on the ground along the coast, individuals on King Island, which was his destination. Descriptions included a green light moving erratically, lights moving at high speed, a light that appeared to hover or change direction. That's sort of classic for many people when they describe that when they see UFOs and stuff. And I have some pictures. The green light detail. This is the most consistent part across reports. Several witnesses described a bright green light. Some said it moved quickly, then disappeared. This is important because Valentich himself did not specifically say green in the transcript, but he did describe a lit object, multiple lights, and movement patterns. I will read the transcript to you before we listen to the audio, but this is just the basic story. The photo evidence, I'll show you in a second. A man named Roy Manifold took pictures that day near Cape Otway, whatever. What's real? He took time-lapse photos of the sunset. One frame appears to show a small object or light in the sky. What analysis suggested? Some said it could be a distant aircraft, a reflection, or artifact. Others claimed it aligned with Valentich's time frame. So I have a couple pictures. Keep in mind they're from 1978, so they're not good pictures per se. Here's the first one. So yeah, looking at the picture, I don't know what that is. Doesn't look like a kite. Doesn't look like a plane. Doesn't look like a bird. I know they have strange animals in Australia, but that does just look like a strange object in the sky that I also would not be able to identify had I taken the picture. And then this picture is even worse because of whatever's going on there. But that, I don't know what that is. Also looks like, I mean, if I'm being honest, it looks like a UFO to me. I could be biased, but that's what it looks like to me because I don't know what that is. So just strange that it was, captured on a camera in the same place at the same time Valentich reported all this stuff. So what you're looking at, fact-based, these pictures were taken as part of a time-lapse sunset series near Cape Otway, Australia. Only one frame appears to show a small object or light in the sky. The rest of the sequence is normal. So I'm guessing, I don't know how that works. I'm no photographer, but I'm guessing that means it disappeared pretty quickly. I don't know. I'd have to ask someone who knows about cameras. Bottom line, his family did not, so back to Valentich, his family did not accept a simple crash explanation. They believed he encountered something unusual. There's no evidence he survived or resurfaced. Friends confirmed he had interest in UFOs, which complicates interpretation. So some people think because he was interested in them that he described what he was seeing that was circling his plane as a UFO, and maybe it wasn't. Some people are saying that, I guess. Here's the radio transcript. So the first communication at 6:19, Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. Is there any known traffic below 5,000? ATC, Delta Sierra Juliet, no known traffic. Valentich, Delta Sierra Juliet, I am. Seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000. ATC, what type of aircraft is it? Valentich, I cannot affirm. It is 4 bright, it seems to me like landing lights. Let me get the rest. Well, there's more than that. So looks like landing lights. The aircraft has just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above. ATC, understand you have unidentified traffic at 12 o'clock. And he said affirmative. And then he said, it seems like he's playing some sort of game. He's flying over me 2, 3 times at speeds I could not identify. So again, they called him an inexperienced pilot. Like, yeah, he had not a ton of experience, but he was obviously capable of flying a plane by himself, which means you have some experience. If you threw me into a plane and asked me to fly it, I would crash into the ocean. So he if he's like, this isn't acting like an aircraft, I think he probably would know. I would even know, and I don't know about aircraft. So anyway, they said, what is your actual level? He said, my level is 4,500, 4500. And he said, it is not an aircraft. It is, and then he paused and they asked him, can you describe the aircraft? So, asked him to describe it. He said, as it's flying past, it's doing a long shape. Cannot identify more than that. It has such speed. It's before me right now. Melbourne, it's approaching from due east towards me. It seems to me that he's playing some sort of game. He's flying over me. It's hovering and it's not an aircraft. So at this point, he's had like enough time to be looking at it and he's like, all right, this thing is not an aircraft. So they started to say something to him. He said, Melbourne, my aircraft is starting to have engine trouble. Delta Sierra Juliet, say again. It's hovering and it's not an aircraft. So again, it doesn't really sound disoriented to me. This is like calm reporting. It sounds like, we'll listen. Final transmission, 17 seconds of unidentified metallic scraping or noise, and then silence. So that was it. After he said it's not an aircraft, they hear this sound, and then it's just silence. So what stands out factually, he starts calm and procedural, asking about traffic. He gradually shifts to confusion, repeated observation of movement, clearly states multiple times, it is not an aircraft. This is the last thing I have to read. Then we'll listen to the video, which is very short. So he reports an object circling high-speed hovering, mentions engine trouble only near the end. So the key takeaway, the transcript is real and documented. One of the main reasons the case remains debated. So no one, again, this was 1978. Nobody has come up with, well, he's just never been recovered. They've never found, which here's the thing. I understand the ocean is massive and very deep. And we've explored what, 5% of it. So I guarantee there are things, not just ships, not just planes, all kinds of things that have gone down, crashed, whatever, gone into the ocean that we've never recovered. So I'm not saying his plane isn't down there somewhere, but still begs the question, what happened? What was this object he was describing right before he disappeared without a trace? So they, again, they did launch a search and rescue immediately, and there was no trace of anything, and nothing has ever resurfaced. So that's strange. When I was looking into this, it sort of reminded me of like, everyone knows about the Bermuda Triangle, but I guess there is a ton of traffic through the Bermuda Triangle. So they say statistically, there aren't really more like missing ships or planes in the Bermuda Triangle than there should be because of how much traffic. However, there are the instances where something disappeared without a trace, and that's like, it's not normal. Like Flight 19, which happened, I want to say in the 40s. It was like five Navy planes, and they were doing a drill. It was like practice or whatever. And so 5 of them go out, and the lead was like, they're all talking to each other, and he said he lost, like, he's like, I don't know. He had trouble with his navigation or something like that. He's like, I don't know where I am. And then they all end up kind of just following. And then they're like, yeah, we like don't know where we are. And then all of a sudden it goes silent. So then they send out a search and rescue plane or something, quite a few people on it, and it also disappeared. So you have like 6 planes that just disappeared into thin air. That doesn't make sense. And I know Alaska has its own version of a Bermuda Triangle, kind of. In fact, I think it's much worse in Alaska, more because they don't have nearly the traffic that the Bermuda Triangle area has, whether in the water or in the air. And so things that just go missing in Alaska, that actually is much more strange. So I understand there are things that exist like that, that makes you wonder. Again, I'm sure things have gone into the ocean, got sucked down, and like, we've not looked everywhere in the water. Things can get carried by a current depending on the circumstances or the weather. I get all that. So I like to go to a natural explanation first before you accept that it's something unnatural. In his case, we'll listen to this transcript in a second, but it sounds like he actually is describing something that wasn't a craft, and it should not have been behaving the way that it was. I mean, a craft can't do that. And then all of a sudden you hear this sound, and then there's silence. So what happened to him? I don't know. It sounds to me like he's describing a UFO, but what does that mean? Did the UFO like shoot his plane down? Did it run into him? Like, obviously the whole abductions thing is real. People go missing in real time, but it's not typically from an aircraft. They don't usually meet in the air and get like abducted. It's usually people while they're sleeping in their homes, like Karen Wilkinson, like Emil Jurek, like Al Matthews. All the, those are just a few of them. So my personal opinion, I think he did encounter a UFO. I think it's the same thing that people saw and that guy took pictures of. But what exactly happened, I don't know. His plane could be at the bottom of the ocean if he had engine trouble. And here's the thing. So many people, when they encounter a UFO, they have issues with their electronics. You could go all the way back to 1917 in Fatima, Portugal, which Catholic people believe that you can look this up, the Fatima apparition. I think it was 1917. They think it was the Virgin Mary who appeared in the sky to 3 kids or whatever. But if you look at the actual facts of what happened, and it wasn't just one sighting, it was like multiple. Many people reported seeing a dull silver disc in the sky, and then a bunch of cars just like exploded. So for some reason, and that's just one example, but that's very old. and cars would have been, sort of relatively new back then in 1917. But then you had, I've mentioned this before, Chase Schlotsky, who she's like a UFO researcher. She had a team with her, and I don't remember where this was, but they'd been, I think, following a UFO, or they'd been tracking it. Maybe there were multiple sightings in this area. I can't remember the circumstances that brought them there, but they're on the ground. And so she had a bunch of expensive camera equipment with her, and they're on the ground moving through like sort of tall grass. And all of a sudden she's like, I feel like terrified, like there's something here watching us. It literally, the way she described it reminds me of, I think it's in the second Jurassic Park movie when they're in the super tall grass and the raptors are loose and they're taking people out in the grass. It literally reminds me of that, the way she described it. But she's like, all of a sudden, terror, like I feel like something's watching me. And she had people with her and they said the same thing. And then within several minutes, she looks over and there's a little gray, and I don't think they're aliens, but there's a little gray, 3-4 feet tall, big black eyes, and it's just looking at her. Didn't make any menacing gestures, but it freaked her out. She dropped thousands of dollars worth of camera equipment and ran. But come to find out, her equipment died, like batteries suddenly drained. Same thing happened to L.A. Marzulli with the team he went with. They went out to the Roswell site and they had to have a guide because it's the middle of nowhere. You cannot find it unless you know where it is. It's way out there. So they go out there. All of their cameras are charged up. They've got extra batteries, and they used a metal detector and they start looking for debris. And they found some, but what they found before is their metal detectors go off. And but before, I should say this, before they started, they go to get ready to film and their cameras died. And they're like, we made sure these were charged all the way up and somehow they're dead. So I think they had to go back and get like something different. But anyway, once they get new equipment, their metal detectors picked up, they're going off, and they found these metal rods or metal spikes like 12 inches long that were in the ground, a bunch of them. And they thought, oh, so here's what they think happened. So the Roswell, if you don't know what happened, the newspaper ran a story that there was a crashed disc. This was 1947, I think. There's a crashed disc, right? Newspaper printed the story. They go get Jesse Marcel Sr., who was the intelligence officer on site, or responsible for this, and they send him out. It's like the middle of the night, I think, and they go start gathering debris. And he goes home in the middle of the night, wakes up his wife and son, and he said, you need to see this because you'll never see anything like it for the rest of your life. This is not from Earth. And what he had was metal. And his son is now dead too, but before he died, he described this metal, and he's not the only one who described it this way. This metal was almost like aluminum foil, like you put over a pot or whatever. Except when you crumple foil, if you try to smooth it back out, you can still see the wrinkles, but they said this would go completely smooth, almost like water. And we don't know what this is. We don't have anything like this. So they gather up all this wreckage. The newspaper ran the story. And then General Ramey comes in. I think he was in Texas or something. He flies in and he sits everybody down and he says, this was a weather balloon. And, Jesse Marcel Sr., intelligence officer, not a stupid person. He's like, there's actually a video of him later in life before he died, someone asking him about it. And he said, General Ramey said this was a weather balloon. And he said, we looked at each other because we both knew that's not what this is. So anyway, this is the theory. Why are these metal spikes in the ground? Well, if you ran a cover story, it's a crashed disc and it actually touched down and then shot back up and hit in another place. So there were two debris sites. If you have the Army on their hands and knees picking up all of the debris so that they can run with this weather balloon story, and someone will come looking to see what happened here, and they'll come with metal detectors. We'll put these spikes in the ground. So if the metal detectors go off, this is what they'll dig out of the ground. So they won't actually find any real debris. They'll just find these spikes that we put there as like a cloaking mechanism, right? But they also found a guy, I think his name's Frank Kimbler. He found buttons in the ground, and the buttons match army uniforms from that were on uniforms from, so I think maybe a 4-year span, something like that, that matched the same time that this Roswell thing happened. He said, so to me, it looks like they had them on their hands and knees, gather up all this debris, put these spikes in the ground, and make sure we clean this place up. So when someone comes looking to see what really happened, because they don't buy the weather balloon story, there won't be anything to find. But there was a little bit to find, because Marzulli's team found metal, and it was 6 inches under the ground, all crumpled up like it'd been through something. And they sent it to different labs to have it tested to see what it is. And I think there's further testing they're going to do it. He was interviewing Avi Loeb the other day, and Avi Loeb said you can have the isotopes tested, and that'll help you figure out what it is, because I don't think they've been able to match it to anything yet. There's an alloy that it's close to, but it's not quite. And the one that it's closest to was not even, we didn't even develop it until like 4 years after Roswell or something like that. So they don't know. They don't know. I think further testing will be done, but they found something. So anyway, I got on that story because their cameras died. And so when back to this pilot who's saying, I'm having engine trouble, that tracks with a lot of UFO stories. A lot of the times there's issue with car engines. There are issues with camera batteries. Even there's a part of, I think it's part of Nevada, where there's like an area that you can drive through. Obviously, there's like a road that goes through it. I can't remember where it is now, but a bunch of people report their phones shut off. It's not just like a dead area for coverage, like, oh, I can't connect to a cell tower. It's like, it's weirder than that. And it's also, it just so happens to be the same area where there are lots of UFO sightings. For some reason, they're oftentimes concentrated in a certain area, like Skinwalker Ranch, that type of thing. They're like hot spots for them. Anyway, let's this video is super short. It's like 3 minutes. I want to hear the transcript. I haven't listened to this yet. So this is it's sort of been reproduced, but it's based off of the original. Let's
Delta Sierra Juliet, what type of aircraft is it? Okay, that was deleted from the press accounts for some reason. Delta Sierra Juliet, and confirm you cannot identify the aircraft. Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger. Stand by. Can you describe the aircraft? Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger. How large would the object be?
Oh. So according to this, he did mention a green light, if this is true, which would coincide with what the people reported seeing from the beach on the same night at the same time in the same area, huh?
Delta Sierra Juliet. Delta Sierra Juliet, confirm the aircraft just vanished behind us. Delta Sierra Juliet, is the aircraft still with you?
North.
Delta Sierra Juliet, roger. What are your intentions?
All right, so I know that was kind of hard to hear. They've tried to reproduce it again for all the way back from 1978, so it's not perfect. Based on what I could hear, he didn't sound disoriented or out of his mind, just trying to make sense of what he's seeing. And obviously, if you were put yourself in his shoes, if you're flying probably a small plane, a Cessna, and you encounter something that's acting strange, the tower says they're not aware anything is supposed to be in the air, and then it's hovering, it's circling you, it's playing a game, it's not an aircraft. What I would probably start panicking. Well, I wouldn't, I'd pray, but I'd start rebuking. But any normal person would likely start getting pretty, you'd be like, what's going on? And then also, if you start having engine trouble. So he sounded pretty calm given those circumstances. So I wouldn't be going with he was just disoriented, just crashed into the ocean. He lost sight of the horizon and he thought he saw a craft, but he didn't. It's like, that's a pretty detailed explanation to be talking to a real person if you're just out of your mind and you think the water line is something that's not an aircraft. You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense. Those theories are kind of crazy in my opinion. So I think it was a UFO. I just don't know what happened to him. Did he get taken? The engine trouble? Here's the thing. Again, with all of the stories of batteries and things having trouble when UFOs are in the vicinity, it would make sense to me that whatever this thing is that's next to him caused the engine trouble. So then the question is, did his plane just go down because it couldn't fly anymore? Or did something, again, if there's a metallic scraping sound, did something hit his plane, cause it to go down? Did it get sucked into? Does plane get like a Star Wars movie, get sucked into this UFO? I don't know. I don't know what we're looking at. We don't have answers for these things. It's just complete conjecture at this point. And the problem is, if you start to even ask these questions out loud, you sound like a lunatic because it's like, oh yeah, you've seen too many movies. Yeah, where do you think the inspiration for the movies came from? Most people who've written the script for these movies are Satanists and pedophiles, and they're in bed with the people controlling the narrative. The same people that are in control of education, politics, largely media, Hollywood, the global elites, they're all in bed together, all of them. So it's what I think Hollywood has done is just predictive programming. That way, we'll make enough movies about aliens. Sometimes they are depicted as evil. Other times, like E.T., it's a nice little heartwarming story. Super 8's sort of like that. This alien just wants to get back home to its planet and we should just help it. So some of them are like that, but it's like predictive programming to just get people get them water everything down, get desensitized in a way, so that way when they do finally step forward with disclosure, which they're talking about, Trump's been making statements about it. The Pentagon, like I said in part one, they had a deadline where they were supposed to release documents and things on the subject of UFOs, and they didn't release them, which is typical of the Pentagon. But it's like we've all been fed a narrative, and everyone's repeating it. Everyone keeps saying, we're not alone in the universe. Are we alone in the universe? We need to find out. Surely, with as vast as the universe is, we're not alone in the universe. It's like everyone keeps saying that. It's like they're reading from a script almost. So we're being like prepped for some type of disclosure. And I guarantee when it finally comes down to it, where we'll start getting a narrative that'll come out. It'll come with evidence. I wouldn't be surprised if they produce a body like from Roswell or from somewhere else, another crash or something. They'll have a body. They'll have plenty of government documents to support. Yeah, they've kept this hidden. They've covered this up, blah, blah, blah. But you will not get the truth on the origin. You'll get fed some bullcrap like they're from the Pleiades. In fact, I think it'll probably eventually what it'll come down to is they seeded planet Earth, like the Stargate movie says, which there's a term for it. I can't remember what the term for it is, but everyone knows like evolution was proposed, and evolution's retarded. Like you have to be an idiot to believe evolution. It's dumb. It's easily debunked. However, when you allow a little bit of room for evolution and you couple it with humanity, and planet Earth was actually put here by an advanced alien race, and then they have watched humanity and they've interacted with us from time to time. That's why we see that we've been visited by them, because we're like their children in a way, right? We're their creation. They've come back to check on us. They've watched, there's a video, I played it a long time ago, where it's AI generated, but someone made a video where you see a UFO land on Earth and you see an alien get off, and you see like prehistoric, like cave people type, Neanderthal type things. And the alien, shows up to help them learn how to kill animals and eat them and start a fire so they can survive. So whoever made this video is trying to communicate, see, they put us here and they've stopped by periodically to help us get to the next level. And now, we're at the point where we're on the brink of nuclear war, and the birth rates have dropped. People are not fertile anymore. We're running out of resources on Earth. We are at a point where we're at the end of our genetic rope and we're just almost out of everything. We're about to destroy ourselves. So now is the perfect time for them to come back and rescue us from ourselves, right? And just come in and intervene and usher us into the golden age for humanity, which is going to mean probably merging man with machine, like they're already doing with things like Neuralink. Also probably come in the form of some type of vaccine or injection or chip or mark that you're going to need to take if you want to be able to live disease free and get your DNA boost that you need in order to continue to be alive. And that this is what they've been talking about in the occult circles in the New Age and whatnot forever. Like 50 years ago, they were talking about the New Age, the New Age for humanity, and how our DNA limits us, and we're going to need to get to the next level. And so who better to help us than our creators, which are these aliens, this advanced alien race that, yes, we made the pyramids. We helped you guys build X, Y, and Z. This is why you've seen UFOs. This is why you have these megalithic sites that you can't explain. This is why, whatever. And they've already even come up with a way to explain away the rapture of the church. And it's in that stupid book. Don't read it because you don't want to get demon possessed. But it's called The Bringers of the Dawn by Barbara Marciniak, who is a spirit channeler. So she thinks she's convinced. Here's a problem with evil spirits is they're liars. So they can tell you they're from anywhere. So she thinks she's talking to ascended masters or whatever, and they're Pleiadians. They're from the Pleiades, which is a real thing. And she thinks she wrote this book about how our DNA limits us. And even in this book, this is how they've explained the way the rapture. It says there's coming a time of earth changes. And there will be people who don't fit here any longer, and they're in the way of the earth changes, and so they'll be removed and put somewhere else. So boom, now you've explained the sudden disappearance of millions of people all over the earth in the blink of an eye, which is the rapture of the church. But now you have a satanic explanation for it rather than a biblical one. So there will be a convenient and convincing lie for everything that's happening, but it won't be true. So when the government comes out with, here's disclosure, yes, we've kept secrets about UFOs all this time, they're not going to give you a truthful origin for these things. It'll probably be some crap about they're just friendly aliens and they've been watching, but they haven't been completely involved, and they see us ready to destroy ourselves. Plus, if you think about it, if the rapture of the church, which I believe it's going to happen, and it'll happen before the tribulation, all of a sudden you'll have people panicking. Think about that for a second. If all of a sudden millions of people disappear in the twinkling of an eye, not only, I think it'll collapse America, the economy, the work, none of that can continue. If all of a sudden you have, say, 60 million Christians here, all of a sudden disappear, America's finished. So people will be in a panic. People will be looking for someone to come in and say, hey, it's going to be okay. I can explain what happened. They'll be eager for someone to bring stability in such a time of uncertainty and fear. And so, of course, that's prime time for the Antichrist to step forward onto the world stage and say, I got it. We're not going to get into nuclear war here. We're not going to destroy ourselves. If everyone will all come in and I'll take care of things. We'll level things out. And for 3.5 years, it'll look pretty cool. It'll look like there's peace. He'll sign the peace treaty with Israel. Everyone will say, oh, look, peace. But then all of a sudden destruction, because 3.5 years in, he violates that peace treaty. He makes his move against Israel. And then he's gonna set himself up to be God in the temple. He's gonna demand everyone worship him, and it's gonna be awful. But understand that deception is gonna come from everywhere during this time. And so, how exactly the whole UFO thing fits in with this? And for the record, I don't think that they're aliens. I think they are. I think every question you have about UFOs, you actually can find in the Bible. If you start in Genesis 3:15, when this is right after Adam and Eve sinned, and then the Lord curses the serpent, which is Satan, and he says, I will put enmity between your seed and the seed of the woman. So the seed of the woman, we know that's a messianic prophecy concerning Jesus. Also, humanity is the seed of the woman. So we're going to be in a fight against whatever the seed of the serpent is. So then you go 3 chapters later to Genesis 6, and you see it says the sons of God, which is the B'nai Ha-Elohim in the Hebrew, which is used to describe fallen angels, not the good guys. These are fallen angels. Sons of God came into the daughters of men. So you have fallen angels having a sexual relationship with the daughters of men. And that's what birthed the Nephilim, which were the giants, which right after this happens, that's when God sends the flood. So a lot of people who don't see the sons of God as fallen angels. They think they were just like wicked men. Then they think that the flood was just a judgment on the earth for the wickedness of mankind. And there was wickedness among mankind, but I think the flood actually was sent not just because of the sin of man. God's put up with a lot from people, a lot. I think it was actually primarily to wipe out the Nephilim because they corrupted the bloodline. And some translations of the Bible say Noah was pure, not just righteous, but pure, meaning his blood was not corrupted. So it's just Noah and his family that get on the ark. Everything else gets killed. But the Bible tells us the Nephilim came back after that because they're in the land as Israel is commanded, go into the land I promised you, kill everything in there, wipe them out. And there were giants. So God's not saying just kill like people, which obviously some people got killed, but it was the giants. They were never the good guys in the Bible, always evil. They weren't human. They weren't. And so what I think you're seeing with the whole alien issue is I don't think that they are extraterrestrials from another planet, from outer space. I think they'll be defined that way and they'll be presented that way. But I think they're nothing more than fallen angels. It's exactly what we saw happen in Genesis 6, where there's a breeding program between something evil and something human that produces something evil that's hybrid and really not human. It's not made in the image of God at that point. That would be the seed of the serpent. So I think the little grays, like when I was talking about Chase Schlotsky, I know L.A. Marzulli thinks the grays, they're not aliens. He thinks it's like a suit. It's like an avatar, for lack of a better word. It's like a biological suit where a demon can inhabit it, and then they're like the worker bees in this whole UFO narrative. They're the ones who go get people when people get abducted. They're the ones oftentimes on the ships when people end up on a metal table and experiments are done on them. And the reason why, part of the reason he thinks they're suits is he's interviewed people who've been abducted and they've been on the ships and they've seen the grays folded up like clothes. So it's a suit. It's not an animal or a person. It's folded up like a shirt in a drawer. And they've also seen them hanging up. Like you come, like say you work in the oil field and you wear your like fireproof suit, you come home, you hang it up. It's like that. So he's like, I don't think that that's flesh, alien flesh or any flesh. I think it is a suit, and it's a way for a demon to inhabit it, because the demons need to inhabit something, which is why they're always trying to get into people. They can get into animals, but being inside something allows them to work, to get, whatever. So I think that's what it is. I think it's not, I think the whole thing's spiritual. But I think that what we're going to be told when disclosure finally gets here is that these are just friendly, these are benevolent space brothers. We've been sharing a universe with them forever. In fact, they probably put us here. That way you can throw out the Bible. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to keep some of it. That way, that would make it easier to establish a one world religion if you keep some aspects of Christianity. So there might be a little bit of Jesus you can have, but he's just whatever the Muslims think. He's a great prophet, but he's not the son of God. And he's certainly not the only way to heaven, right? So there will come an attack on scripture, cast doubt on the Bible, the origins of it. I'm sure they'll produce manuscripts or something. Oh, see, actually, every translation of the Bible wasn't quite right. And this is the origin here. And so people are already doing that. They're already attacking the Bible and the translation of it, which is interesting. If it's not true, then I wonder how it successfully built the church for 2,000 years. I wonder why it works when you do it. I wonder why demons come out when you command them in the name of Jesus. It's interesting. If none of it's right, I wonder why it works. So I'm sure it's coming. But anyway, that's what I think about the Valentich disappearance. I think he came into contact with a UFO. I don't know if his plane disappeared. I don't know if it got sunk. I don't know if he got shot down. I don't know if he got abducted. I don't know what happened, but the dude disappeared. And he insisted it was not an aircraft. And there's been no trace of him since 1978. So do with that what you will. That's just my take on it. And he's not the only one. There have been plenty of disappearances. Both planes and ships, people not in a plane or a ship, just straight up disappearing. Many people come back. They're missing in real time, but they do come back. Al Matthews, the guy from Canada, he was taken I don't want to say regularly, but kind of regularly for a long time. And one time when he was taken, he was driving his car on the road, and he said his entire car got this is like something you'd see out of a movie, like Star Trek or something. His entire car with him in it got beamed up into, like a UFO ship. And he was gone for hours. And when he was put back, he was beamed back down in his car, and he was 200 miles away from where he was when he was first taken, and he'd been violated while he was gone. And when he got back, he'd peed his pants and everything, which is what happens to people. These, if you think they're aliens, why do they, and they're good guys, why do they abduct people against their will? Why do they violate people? They take sperm from men and ovum from women. Why are they obsessed with the reproductive organs of people? Which again, if it's about reproduction, then Genesis 6 makes a lot of sense, because there was a breeding program that happened in the Bible. So it makes sense if you look at it through the lens of Scripture. If you don't look at it through the lens of Scripture, then you have to deal with those questions. Why? Why take people against their will? If you're just interested in humanity and you want to share the universe with us or whatever, why take people? Why violate them? And why the reproductive parts? Why? To say, and we could get into the missing pregnancies. Even Brett Baer did a segment on that years ago, that women, I'm not going to say it's like common, but a number of women who said they were abducted, they found themselves pregnant, and then in the 3rd month they're taken again, and the fetus is gone, and they've gone to the doctor after the pregnancy was confirmed. Then they've gone to the doctor again after it was taken, and they're like, we can't even tell you were pregnant. Are you sure that you were? And they're like, yeah, there was a heartbeat. It was confirmed. I was pregnant, and then I got taken, and now it's gone. So what's that about? I think that's where, and Marzulli put this together as well, and I think he's right. That's where the cattle mutilations come in, I think, because bovine blood, cow's blood, can be used in transfusions. And so, and also when a cow, when there's been a cattle mutilation, they oftentimes take the reproductive parts of the cow as well. And they take some other organs. Sometimes the eyes are gone and the tongues and stuff like that. And they're drained of blood. And so Marzulli thinks they're making an artificial womb, that because you need gestation of some kind. You can't take a fetus at 3 months and it survive outside the womb. So they've got to have a gestation tank or something of some kind for it to grow and not die. So he thinks that they've taken the parts of the cows to create some type of tank to put that fetus in after they've taken it in the 3rd month. I know it sounds crazy. I know it does. If you think it's nuts, go to L.A. Marzulli's website, lamarzulli.com. You can stream the films that he's made. He did one specifically on cattle mutilations. It's dark. It's a little disturbing, because if you've never seen pictures of cattle mutilations, you don't know what it is. It's kind of dark. But he's done films on the abductions, and you can listen. Some of the people I mentioned are in the films. They've been interviewed. He's still in contact with him. He talks regularly with Al Matthews and Karen Wilkinson. She wrote a book called Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. She was abducted. She got pregnant 3 times, and all 3 of them were taken. She was taken from the time she was a little kid, and she's got like health complications now as a result of it. Doctors they've done scans, and they're like, what happened to you? You have injuries, and we don't know what could have caused this. And she's like, I can't explain. They'll think I'm crazy. They'll send me to a psych ward if I tell them I've been abducted. You know what I mean? You can't talk about it. People think you're nuts, which is why I appreciate Marzulli, because he gives people a platform where he will listen. And if you're full of crap, he can usually tell, and he won't go with your story. But there are plenty of people who are not full of crap. They're sharing something terrible that actually happened to them. And there are plenty of stories, people with nothing in common, never talked to each other before, and they all tell a similar story, same symptoms, same circumstances. So it's a real thing. It's very dark, but again, if you look at it through the lens of the Bible, I guess it shouldn't be surprising. We already know it happened. So, and even Jesus said, in talking about the end times, he said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man. So meaning at the end, right before I come, you're going to see the same type of stuff you saw in the days of Noah. And obviously that involved eating and drinking, marrying and being given in marriage. And it means there's still economy. Life is going on as if there's not doom coming. But also something else really big happened in the days of Noah, and that was this whole thing in Genesis 6 with a breeding program, with something evil and not human and people. So it all lines up, in my opinion, perfectly if you just let the Bible shape your interpretation of what you're seeing, because this stuff is real. And it's, like I said, it's become mainstream. So if you've ignored it up to this point because it makes you uncomfortable, or you didn't want to be a lunatic because you're like, only insane people believe that stuff is real, it's at the point where it's mainstream. So you can make up your mind, okay, this is a real thing. I don't know how much is true or whatnot, but it's a real thing. Something's going on. So what is my interpretation of the source of this thing? Am I going to go with what I see in Hollywood movies? Am I going to go with what eventually the government's going to tell me? Or am I going to look at it through the lens of the Bible, which has stood the test of time? There are more manuscripts for that book than anything else. It stood the test of time, and the answers are in there. They're in there. If you will read it and believe it, you will see that this God gave you a heads up. He's literally told us what's going to happen, which is why you don't live in fear. It's awesome. A lot of people are freaked out when, oh, aliens, are they going to kill us? What's going on? You get a heads up if you read the Bible, and there's no fear. You're like, oh yeah, I was told this was coming. And good news is every evil spirit is not greater than I am, because he lives in me. So I'm not afraid of what's coming. Anyway, that's it for part 2. I could go on, but I won't. Here are the ways to find me, contact, follow, all that good stuff. Eventually, sometime tonight, I'll post all these on Substack, YouTube, and audio only. I found out you can put videos on Spotify. That's got to be new. But I, for some reason, didn't have an audio recording of one. I don't know what happened, so I had to put the video, and I didn't know you could. Anyway, and then here, if you want to support Amber Alert Podcast, those are the ways that you can. It is 5:33. I am going to start. I'm going to come back at 5:45. How's that? At 5:45, I'm going to start part 3, and we're going to get into the Bible. We're not going to talk about UFOs or anything. It's a completely different subject. In fact, it was something I wanted to talk about, and then I literally got rebuked from my spirit because the very thing that I wanted to talk about, I was literally doing it. And I was like, oh, bro, I'm like such a hypocrite. So it's a good thing for everyone to keep in mind, myself included. All right, we'll start at 5:45. It'll be a new live video. I will see you there. God bless you, and goodbye.